kind of scheduled. So get set up. We're live. And I can remove you for a second if you need to be removed.
Okay.
All right. So good. So essentially, while we're live, I got about 18 students. They'll all be checking in right now. So I'll start seeing on my end, they'll all start checking in, saying, hey, that they're here. But it works out pretty well because, can you hear me?
No, I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry.
All right. It's always a little tricky.
Is there any way you can like chat the questions to me or just give me a brief and I can answer that way?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, actually, I can hear you right now. So go for it.
Yeah, and you're clear too. So whatever room you're in. All right, so everybody's checking in right now. So I'm going to wait a little bit and see. We have 17 or 18. Mostly our physical therapists. I'm just looking down, make sure everybody's here. Awesome. So everybody's here. All right. So we'll get going. Are you typing on your end?
No, not right now. So.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So let's get going. So hopefully we'll have a couple more check in this week. In Careers in Exercise Science, we are lucky to have Taylor. My wife just texted me. My wife is Tara. Taylor Streid. She's from the Brentwood Athletico, right down the street. And so she comes out each week, talks to the students. So she should be great. So what I've liked about this, Taylor, is that they can ask questions through comments, right? So sometimes the students are a little quieter in class, but they'll throw questions out anytime during our talk. And so I'll throw those up on the screen and we'll be able to check out each comment. There's a tapping or a ticking. I'm wondering if I'm doing that on my end or if that's it, like you have a metrodome going over there. So, someone's doing their timed exercises in the background. Good.
Oops. I think, I'm sorry, I think it's probably going to be easiest via chat. I don't know why.
Oh, we lost Taylor for a second. Apparently there's some thick walls in Athletico, so she's bounced back and forth between her office and her phone and trying to figure out the best connection. It's kind of tricky today's COVID times. So we're going to have her back in a minute. So everyone looks like they're here. Are here. When we get Taylor back, we'll talk a little bit about how she went to St. Louis University. She went through a DPT program, and she's now a licensed physical therapist. But shoot any questions her way. She's also a highly competitive CrossFIT athlete, like a national competitor. And so if you have any questions about her training, balancing her academics with her athletics in school, I believe she was also a swimmer at St. Louis University. We'll get into that. So she knows what it feels like to be a student athlete in a serious program as well. But we'll rock and roll. All right, so I can throw comments. I can throw comments your way. We can do either way. All right, if everybody can hear. So, all right, so let's rock and roll. Can you hear me?
Yeah, a little bit.
More or less. Okay. So let me pose a question.
So, I mean, I can give kind of like a background of myself, if that works.
Yeah. Talk about SLU a little bit, why you went into physical therapy.
Yeah. So I was an athlete all my life. And for me, I kind of knew I wanted to do something active as a profession. So when I was probably like freshman, sophomore in high school, I started having some knee pain, started having some issues. I was a swimmer, and just like the repetition started to get to me. So I got involved in, I was going to physical therapy myself, started asking some questions there, kind of seeing, I guess just what more the profession was about. And then kind of lucked into, I was being recruited by SLU to swim, and lucked into they have a freshman entry PT program. So I, with that, just applied, and they said, easier to get in now than try to get in later. So was lucky to get in there. But at SLU, we had a 3-year undergrad and then 3 years of grad school. The PT program itself was all year round, which I think most programs are nowadays. And you get your doctorate at the end of it, which again, every PT program, you kind of have to, or you have to have your doctorate coming out of school nowadays to practice. So
most DPT programs are year round?
Sorry.
That's right.
A new comment. Okay. Yeah. So most DPT programs are year round. You'll start say in like August and you'll go through the summer, things like that. And mostly it's because you'll have clinicals. So the nice thing about PT school is when you graduate, you'll have all your clinicals done. So if you do like occupational therapy or speech therapy, things like that, a lot of times you have to continue to collect hours after you graduate before you can sit for your boards. With PT school, you have about 40 weeks of clinical experience kind of broken up in between your classes and things like that. So that, it was nice when you graduated, you could sit for boards. You didn't have to wait and get more hours and accumulate more time in the clinic. Okay, so kind of balancing between academics and athletics. So my first 3 years, I was just in like the undergrad program. So basically what all of you guys are doing now, which you have your moments of, being very overwhelmed and things like that. But the good thing about SLU, they had a lot of resources, a lot of people that we could have help us within the athletic department, or just taking advantage of tutoring, or working with study groups, things like that. So that's basically how I managed it the first 3 years. The fourth year I was still swimming, and I was also my first year of grad school, and that was very overwhelming for me just because of the time. So you basically go to school from 8 to 5. You have labs in there, but it's long days, and you have to be focused on what you're doing. You can't be distracted by other things. Missing classes was really hard with travel and things like that. So that kept you on your toes. And, for me, that actually helped. The last 2 years were a lot easier just because I didn't have as much on my plate. But the first year was extremely stressful, and just kind of, for me, making schedules, writing out, lists of things that need to get done, and staying on top of it, finding tutors. I used don't be afraid to reach out for help, because that's what people are there for. So that helped me a lot, kind of stay successful throughout my 4 years, and then even into grad school as well.
We said a lot, especially during COVID. We have so many coaches, tutors, counselors, trainers, coaches, everyone who wants to work with you, professors. Always reach out to someone while you're in school.
Yeah.
I'll throw another comment out.
So actually going into physical therapy, I initially wanted to work in a hospital setting with, I thought, oncology patients. I thought that'd be a really cool environment for me. As I got further into it, I realized I didn't know if I had it's a very emotional and hard population to work with, just because not everyone's getting better. You're going to see, a lot more death and things like that. So I kind of actually ended up right now I'm in the outpatient orthopedic world, which actually has been a really good fit for me. Working with a lot of athletes, a lot of active people that, you're going to see progress from point A to point B, and get them back to the things that they really enjoy doing. So I kind of did a 180 with where I thought I was going to be in the PT world, and then where I ended up, but I'm happy with where I'm at for sure.
Cool.
Oh yeah. So outpatient is outside of it's in a clinic, so standalone building. So I work for Athletico Physical Therapy, which I'm sure you've seen plenty of those clinics around the St. Louis area. And the thing with, especially in Missouri, is we're not controlled by any hospital, or we're not controlled by any doctors or physicians. So we're standalone. And really with outpatient, it's people that can get to the clinic every day. And you're probably seeing them for, 2 to 3 times a week for 4 to 6 weeks, or potentially like post-op after surgery. So you're going to be working with someone from an ACL, so potentially 9 to 12 months. You're seeing those patients. So you really you get to see them from the beginning, from when they're in pain or when they're unable to do something, to when you discharge them and they hopefully are back to 100% or close. And then, so your inpatient is more your hospital setting. Those are the people you're going to probably, depending on what area you're in, but for the most of the time, you're going to see them maybe, I don't know, 3 to 7 times. And you probably see them every day, and just make sure they can do things safely to get home. So, the goal is to get people out of the hospital as fast as we can. So making sure they can go up and down stairs if they have stairs at their house, making sure they can get in and out of a car, get out of a chair. If they can't do those kind of things, what kind of equipment do we need to be able to set them up with at home so they can be successful when they get home. And then you kind of have an in-between, which is like your skilled nursing facilities. So that's going to be, even just nursing homes in general, but skilled nursing facilities is sometimes a place where you go as a step between the hospital and going home. So you need a little bit more assistance. So you'll be doing a little bit more like active stuff with people, but if they've been bedridden for a while, you lose your strength pretty quickly. So just making sure, giving them more time to work on going up and down stairs, being able to get in and out of bed by themselves, kind of giving them that bridge between hospital and home.
Sure.
So Athletico has, so at our clinic, we have 10 therapists. 9 of us are physical therapists, and we have 1 occupational therapist. So in the outpatient world, most of the times occupational therapists are working with hands, elbow, a little bit of shoulder and wrist. That's kind of their main setting here. In a hospital, you're going to be doing more of like functional tasks. So there's a fine line between what PTs and OTs do in the hospital. OTs are going to be doing like making sure you can get your pants on, making sure you can cook food, like those kind of everyday activities that we don't necessarily think of, where PTs are doing like the bigger things like getting in and out of a chair, going up and down stairs. Obviously, both of those things are very important for people, because if you can't, cook food on your own, if you're having shoulder pain, if you got a shoulder surgery, what kind of things do we need to set up for you at home? Do we need to get a meal service? That kind of stuff. So occupational therapy will work in the hospital more with those like smaller functional tasks, where PT do the larger functional tasks, I think is kind of the best description. But in the clinic, in the outpatient world, it's like I said, hand, wrist, elbow, a little bit of shoulder, and they're doing kind of the same thing that we're doing, making sure, if they're in pain or unable to do things, take them from point A all the way through their therapy treatment to where they're back to, 100%, hopefully.
So you do have a few OTs at Athletico? Okay, just go to this.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we do. So we've been doing a little bit of virtual PT. It started off right when COVID started. We had a lot of virtual PT going on. And for the time being, it was a really good bridge, especially people that were really nervous about coming into the clinic. It's definitely not the way that I prefer to treat. It's a lot harder, and you have to make sure that people have certain things at home. You have to become, definitely became more creative trying to figure out things that you could have people do. But it's hard to show exercises, and it's hard to get, hands on a patient and be like, make sure they're moving correctly. We actually stayed open the whole time. We cut our therapist down a little bit, but just especially for post-op patients, you have to have your hands on those patients, making sure you're stretching them, making sure, if it's a knee surgery, their quads coming back. So we stayed relatively busy for all things considered, but any of those post-op people were definitely still coming to the clinic just because they need to be hands-on patients. So
sure.
Yeah, so PT's actually been, in the past maybe 10, 15 years, they've started to have a lot of specializations. So I think there might be like 10 of them. You have like orthopedics, pediatrics, so your kids, you have your geriatrics, so your elderly population, but then it also goes into like neuro specialty, so more of that like spinal cord rehab or stroke rehab. You have just, I think there's sports as well. So that's going to be, you specialize, you kind of start trending into like an athletic trainer a little bit more, where you're on the field with people, and you have to be emergency medical trained as well. And so with a specialty, right now you'll do your 3 years of grad school, and then you go into having it's usually like a 18 to 2-year program, and you're working, you're getting paid, but you're being paid very like minimally, because you're still going to school technically. So you have someone that's looking over you, giving you assignments, making sure that you're kind of current on all the up-to-date information with your actual specialty you're going into, and then helping you advance your training with that as well. So for me, I was not ready to go back into school again. I was ready to have a break, especially after 6 years for me was a long time. 7 years for most. It's hard to be motivated, but the good thing about a specialty is it's something you can go back and do. So it's not something you have to choose to do right out of school and you can never get back into it. You can start one of those residencies at any point in your career if you can get into the program. So it's kind of cool that way.
Along these same lines.
Oh yeah. So regular continuing ed in Missouri, you have to have 32 hours every 2 years, and maybe half of that is supposed to be in person. Continuing education, honestly, a big thing. So at Athletico, since it's a big clinic, they actually have a lot of people that come around and offer free continuing education for us. But then they also give you like a budget every year of being able to go out and take certain classes. So for myself, I actually am certified in dry needling, which is similar to acupuncture, and that was I think it was a 30-hour course over 3 days. So I basically knocked out all of my continuing education in those 3 days, which was really nice. But for most businesses, they'll offer you some sort of allowance to be able to do that, and then like I said, you have to have your in-person hours, but then you can also, especially right now, there's a ton of things that you can do online, just because it's with COVID, it's been hard to actually have any online continuing education or in-person continuing education. So they've kind of switched to,
Right.
There's a lot more online opportunities right now too, which are nice.
Yeah, which is tough. I'm not sure Taylor can hear me, but there's a lot of online and continuing education, but it's tough to, I don't know why this is something extra is clicking. But to go live is so nice. To work with other people, to work with your colleagues, your friends, things like that. Everything's virtual right now, so it's a little tougher to do. But let's ask about. I want to ask a little bit more about dry needling.
Okay. Yeah. So dry needling itself, the idea behind acupuncture is to try to change the chi or flow of an energy system. So with acupuncture, there's a point in your calf that is supposed to help with stomach issues. And you're changing like the meridians. So there's, I honestly am not super educated in it, but there's a lot of, like I said, different points in the body that are going to affect different things. Like there's a point in your hand that helps with headaches, things like that. With dry needling, you're going targeting the specific muscle that's actually injured. So say your knee's been bothering you a lot, your quad's really tight. So I will go and dry needle your quad, dry needle those, just an area that's actually affected. The idea behind it is to kind of help restart the blood flow so those muscles can get really, if anytime you work out actually a muscle, you get small little muscle tears, those muscles can become injured. They aren't getting the normal blood flow and things like that through it. So the dry needling kind of helps restart that process, helps restart that healing process. Gets, anytime you have a injury, you should have blood flow rush to it. So with the needles, trying to get the blood flow to rush to that area and then get you back to moving a little bit better.
Cool.
So applying to DPT programs, the big thing I would say that a lot of people look for is experience. So get out like Athletico. Well, right now it's really hard actually because I know we're not allowing people to shadow, and I know a lot of other places aren't letting people to shadow. But when you actually when you can actually get back into a clinic or get back into a hospital, I'd say go and get at least 30 hours of shadowing. That's going to look really good. And, ask questions and, find resources to help you kind of advance with that as well. Application, there's like kind of like with college, you can apply. There's like a Common App, or I don't remember. That was a long time ago I applied, but you could kind of put all this information in one. There's the same thing with PT as well. It's going to be expensive, so just brace for that. It's not cheap. Some places you might have to travel and do interviews with and things like that. The hard thing about St. Louis, so SLU is a freshman entry program, so it's hard. It's near impossible to get into that program without without starting your freshman year. WashU accepts PT program or PT students after their 4 years, and then Maryville may. It depends on they're also freshman entry, but they do have some people I know that come in later. There's plenty of places in Missouri or Illinois though that have PT programs, like Mizzou, Southern Illinois does, Missouri State does, so you can stay relatively kind of in the close area. Okay, so
here's another one.
So going off of the CrossFit style of fitness, so for me personally, I was a swimmer. I swam for years of my life, and when I got done swimming, I switched to running right away because I was like, and I was a decent runner, but for me it was boring. I didn't enjoy it, and it was very just same thing over and over again. So someone drugged me to a CrossFit gym, and I loved it. I really enjoyed that. There's literally something you can work on every day, and it's always changing, which is pretty cool. So for me, I'm really competitive. I can compete at the the international level. Like earlier this year, I actually went over to Australia to compete. And so for me right now, my life is basically work and working out. Something that, I've accepted, and within the next year or two, this was probably going to be my last year, but COVID kind of put a damper on that. So I want to go out probably one more year and then switch to, maybe slowing down a little bit, but it's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy, but it's something that I really like. And it's something that, for me, even when I get out of it, it's something I can continue to do for the rest of my life. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I say one more year every year, I know. But I will say this really was going to be my last year until I qualified for the games and didn't get to compete, and that kind of hurts a little bit. So the specialty programs after grad school, they're not necessarily easy, but there are plenty of them out there. You might just have to be willing to travel a little bit more. There's not a ton like in this Midwest area, but I know on the coast, like the East and West Coast, there's more of those programs available. It's just being willing to travel, looking for what you want to find.
So speaking of CrossFit, I was going to ask about this.
Yeah. So for CrossFit qualifying, are you talking about for the games?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the games are the big international competition. So last year I qualified individually and competed, and I think there was about around 140 girls from around the world, and I ended up for top 50, which I was pretty excited about. And yeah, it's 4 days of competition, and you travel all over to basically qualify, and then hopefully you're lucky enough to qualify. So it's a big deal. It's the best of the best, which is pretty cool. This year I actually went team. Thank you. This year I went team, and we were planning on traveling we did get to travel to Australia. We came back on March 14th, which was really lucky, right before all the COVID actually hit. But we were going to attempt to travel to France and a few other places. So it's a pretty cool thing, pretty cool experience you get to do. So.
Yeah, sure.
I honestly, it's hard for me to give you exact advice on that because like I said, I had a freshman entry program, but I honestly think it probably just looks good to have something. And even with that being said, you probably don't need to have something fitness, certification, but it probably would help. But I don't know. I'm not the best to answer that question. Sorry.
Okay. I talk to my students about that fact,
Yeah.
As far as meeting with people, working people.
Helps. We have like here in a lot of clinics, we'll have people we have aides. And so they basically, in our clinic, we schedule people, actually now it's every 45 minutes, but you always have an overlap for the most part because people are here an hour to hour 15, depending on what they're being treated for. So when you have that overlap, we have aides that help us with exercises. So we'll do all the manual therapy and do exercises, make sure they're moving okay, and then we'll pass them off. Sometimes you can, you have to be actually a really good multitasker in the PT world because there's always multiple things going on. But yeah, we'll be able to pass them off to an aide, and then that aide will take them through, the rest of their exercises and things like that. And that actually is something, if you have the time and you have the ability, seeking out a job like that, even if you do it at home during the summer, a lot of the clinics, like we have students here that are here for the school year, and then we'll hire different people in the summer because they go home for this, school year or for the summer. So, look out places like that, things like that. But that's definitely a good experience to have. And then just even, getting your foot in the door, asking questions, things like that is definitely helpful.
Yeah.
So me personally, so at SLU we had to have a minor, and I had a minor. My minor was psychology, which is honestly really good. I think half the time I'm more of a mental therapist than a physical therapist. People come and vent and, tell you what's going on and what their stressors are. And that a lot of time actually leads to some of their pain as well. So psychology was a good, definitely minor to have, and just, have some of those different mindset that way. But I would also have liked to have like a business minor or a focus on that, just because, if I were to go and start my own clinic, I don't have a lot of that background. So for me, that'd be nice to have a little bit more of that background with that. So here I don't do a lot, which is nice. We have a front desk worker who does actually front desk staff, and they do a lot of that work for us. The biggest thing we have to do is write our notes and code and things like that with, all of our fees and stuff like that. But they honestly take care of everything for us, which is really nice. I actually, during COVID, I got much better at scheduling people and being able to do a lot of these things because our staff went down so much. So, I'm able to function on the front desk side a little bit better, but we don't really have to do a lot of that because our front desk does it for us.
Good. Okay.
So I've worked with, I think, 2 of your students now who have come and done some shadowing and things like that with us. Uh-huh. And I kept up with one of them a little bit, and he just, asked me some questions and things like that. And I, just having some sort of network or having someone that you can ask different questions or, get advice or, he was an athlete. And so I think it even helped just having someone that was an athlete. I think it's just good to just help you continue to grow. And it may be something too, that when you get out of actual grad school and are looking for a job, and being able to have people that you've been talking to and, things like that, just over the times can definitely help you find a job. The more you kind of get into this world, you realize it's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know. So if you can, reach out and see some different, work with some different therapists, things like that, it definitely can help you in the future.
Typing as fast as I can. There you
go. So I personally don't refer to any nutritionist. And that's honestly, that's probably the biggest loss for myself, because there's a lot of nutrition things that would really help our patients. So having, especially with COVID, realizing how much obesity and diabetes and all those things are things that actually make the disease significantly worse for most people. And, that's if we were able to refer out to nutritionists more often and be able to, work with that profession, I really think that could help. The hard thing with, therapy, people come in and they just want to be fixed most of the time. And so, really going to a nutritionist is going to be something that takes a little bit of extra effort, and they have to make some serious lifestyle changes to really, for the most part, get the benefit out of the nutritionist. However, I do think that COVID is opening the eyes to how important a nutritionist could be. And I think that profession, I really hope that profession starts to grow and people start to use it more often. And hopefully people are realizing, the obesity issues and things like that and how they can make a difference. So, I myself am pretty educated on nutrition and things like that. So I can talk about those kind of things with some patients, but really, if you want to make big changes, it needs to be a nutritionist. So for myself, I actually meal prep every Sunday, and I meal prep my lunches for the week, and then I have my dinners planned out for the week. My boyfriend and I usually go out once a week for dinner during the week, and then we'll go out once in the weekend. So
same kind of question.
kind of like improving the nutrition or improving performance. So for me, I count my macros, and I kind of am at the point, I've done it for probably 3 or 4 years now. So I kind of know what I need, but my thing is I weigh and measure my protein every day. So I weigh about 145 pounds, and I eat about 160 grams of protein every day, because that's kind of how I can keep my muscle mass up, and that even make sure that, menstruation, things like that stay steady, because the big thing with working out this much is you want to make sure that you continue to treat your body right. So I actually don't take any supplements. The only thing that I'll do every once in a while is protein. But that's if I'm really low on protein for the day. I try to eat my food. I don't like supplements at all. How do I get all my protein? So I do have one protein bar every day, and that has about 20 grams of protein. I'll do Greek yogurt in the morning and add, peanut butter, and some granola to that. For lunch, I'll usually have some sort of chicken. And then dinner just depends. Usually at night, if I'm low, like I said, if I'm low on protein, I'll have a protein shake, but that doesn't happen very often. It's big helpings of meat. It's, sometimes it takes you a little bit to eat it, but it seems to work out pretty well. So.
I just want to ask Taylor about her female athletes a little bit.
Yeah, so especially with females, staying healthy is very important. I think I haven't seen it so much in this clinic, but when I was at SLU, we had a lot of issues with overtraining and undereating, and it's hard, because we definitely are supposed to fall into this like certain mold of what you look like, especially with swimming. You have a small suit on. With running, you've got short shorts on and things like that, and so. I think it's really important to realize, you need to take care of your body, and it needs to perform the best for yourself. And this is going to sound silly as well, but when I first started counting macros, like I got shredded. Like I had an 8-pack, like I was super muscular and things like that. But I lost my period. And for me, then I started, like, I couldn't lift as much and things like that. And in the CrossFit world, that wasn't beneficial for me. And by no means am I like what you would consider fat now. I'm still probably like 15% body fat, but I'm able to keep my period. I'm able to stay healthy, and I may not be as shredded, but I perform better. And it's kind of a body that I've accepted. And this is what does, works for me, is what's going to give me the best ability to perform, and then the ability to continue to have a healthy lifestyle after I'm done working out, or done working out as competitively.
Yeah.
My favorite injury to treat is probably a knee or a shoulder. The knee to me is pretty straightforward, but there's so many things that you can do to treat it, and there's so many different kinds of knee issues. And I don't know, I find it really easy to just get creative with knee exercises, so I have a lot of fun with the knee. Shoulder is fascinating because it's literally the most mobile joint in your body. You've got 180 degrees of movement, and just trying to get all the pieces working together again is fun. So. So as far as salary goes, the frustrating thing for PTs is you have to have your doctorate degree, and it doesn't increase your salary at all. So, the occupational therapy world right now, you can, I think, get your master's or your doctorate, and most people opt to do their master's solely because it's like a year less of school, and you're going to get paid the same when you get out of school. And that's kind of what the PT world is running into. Missouri is kind of stuck in its ways, but a lot of actually, like Illinois and other states have started having direct access. So you're able, someone can come off the street. If you roll your ankle, you can come off the street. You don't have to go to the doctors and do all this thing. And I think that actually potentially opens up what you could potentially make and things like that to be a lot higher, just because you can have your own clinic and things like that. And just, people come in and you don't have to deal as much with insurance and things like that. So, starting salary, you make probably around 60 to 65,000 in the Missouri area. In St. Louis area, if you were to go outside of St. Louis, you're probably going to make more, just because St. Louis is very saturated with 3 PT schools and lots of hospitals and things like that. So, what does grad school look like? So, probably the first year you're doing all classes. And like I said, you're kind of going to school 8 to 5. You'll have labs in there. And then after that, you start to have clinicals interspersed. So you may go to a clinical for like 5 to 10 weeks. It just depends on your program and depends on what's available. But with those clinicals, you may be doing some like kind of ancillary classes online. Like one of ours was just talking about like ethics, very like simple class. That you have to do, stay up with something once a week. But besides that, you're working full time in a clinical. So whatever your instructor's schedule looks like, that's what you'll be there. So like I work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 to 3, and then Tuesday, Thursday, 12 to 7. So you would be here the whole day with me. And we would kind of, especially as you get further along in the clinic, I start to give you all my patients and just oversee and make sure you're doing everything correctly and things like that. So. This just goes with anything, but find something that, really gets you excited. Find something that, you find exciting, you find fascinating. I really like the body, and I really liked studying movement. So for me, PT seemed to be a really good fit for that. There's definitely going to be times where it sucks because it's hard work. It's not easy. And, you just got to stay the course, think of what your ultimate goal is. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, I used to make checklists of things, and, those checklists can be all the way from, fold your laundry, or it can be, your ultimate goal. So, graduate PT school or whatever it may be. Like for me, I make a list every year for CrossFIT. Our season actually just technically ended, even though we didn't really get to cap it off, but make a list of everything and, small little goals along the way. But then like the ultimate goal is to make the CrossFIT games. And then when I get to the CrossFIT games, what do I want to place and things like that. So my list, starts off with these small goals and slowly gets bigger. And that's kind of how I keep myself motivated, keep the drive going. So.
I think sports outside of college is key as well. You can stay fit. How about this?
Last patient demo over. So my last patient I saw before hopping on this call here, she she works in the kitchen of a restaurant, and she's just having back pain. So she's only like 20. Shouldn't really probably be having all this back pain, but for her, generally the biggest issue is just weakness. So posture, things like that, kind of falling, slumping forward with her shoulders, not doing anything to keep her back strong. So we've just been working from the get-go. Started with a lot of like table stuff. It actually was our last day today, but started with a lot of table stuff and just working on getting her core stronger, working on some shoulder scapular positioning, and then we've slowly built. So she's doing like box lifts now. So, lifting 20 pounds overhead, doing deadlifts. So lifting, 35 pounds that way, making sure that, proper mechanics and things like that. But it's been fun to kind of see, I think she's probably been here maybe like 8 weeks. So see her go from, doing table stuff, and then we're getting back into like kind of work related activities. And then, I was making sure like, hey, you need to stay up with this kind of stuff because your job is going to continue to ask you to, bend over and cut things and plate things and all that kind of stuff. So you need to make sure you're staying up with, giving her a goal, a program for the gym and things like that, ideas like that. So she can make sure that she's continually progressing. We do a lot of strength training. And like I said, sometimes you'll start with like that, like low level table stuff, but for me, and I think this might be kind of a CrossFit mentality as well. Like you should be able to lift something off the ground. You should be able to lift something overhead, be able to carry things. And so for me, like we do have a barbell. That I don't actually get to use a ton in the clinic. I use that more for my patients that lift. But we have dumbbells, we have kettlebells, we have resistance bands, all that kind of stuff. And, if I'm not doing some sort of strengthening with a patient, I'm doing them a disservice. So I try to make sure that I'm, including all that.
Sure.
So initial eval for a patient, you basically are just asking them their subjective, so their history, what's kind of going on, what makes things worse, what makes it better, what have you done already, have you had x-rays, all that kind of stuff, what medications are you on, and taking all that information in. Then you'll go through, and so in the PT world, there's a lot of, we call them special tests, so looking for muscle strength, looking for range of motion, looking for movement patterns, different things that are like provocative tests, for the shoulder, for the knee, does this hurt? And that kind of identify different things going on. And then you will do, give them a few exercises for home, maybe a few more exercises in clinic, but give them a few exercises. I try to stick around 3 exercises for home that are relatively simple, that aren't going to take you hours to do. So it's something that they'll actually be consistent with, hopefully, or something that they can do sitting at their desk, or they can do in between, whatever. So I try to keep it, short. And it's usually probably about an hour, but try to keep it relatively short and sweet that first day to not overwhelm them and to not make them too sore.
Sure.
So I mentioned this earlier. Right now, a lot of my life is work and working out, but I do, and I'm pretty strict with my diet for the most part. But like I said, we go out at least once, or we go out one weeknight every week, and then that's my boyfriend and I, and then we usually go out probably once or twice over the weekend. And I don't worry about what I eat. I don't, if I want to have a drink, that's fine. But I'm pretty strict, say 85% of the time, and the other 15% I let myself do what I want, because I know my body will recover from that. Okay. Honestly, my stress relief is working out. I've debated, back and forth before if I should work out full time, and a lot of athletes that I compete against actually do work out full time. But for me, I want to go to the gym. I enjoy going to the gym. I have a good group of people I train with, and for me, that's my stress relief. It's fun. It's relaxing. It's hard work, but I don't know. I'm just crazy like that, but I like it. So, and for me, I have a boyfriend. I met him at the gym, so pretty easy. He understands, and he actually, trains with me as well. So that's pretty easy for, having that relationship. But at first, it definitely was hard with my family, understanding, how competitive I wanted to be and why I was making all these decisions, and why, and when I go home, I only want to have one drink. I don't want to, get drunk with my brothers and things like that. So at this point, they're very supportive, and I've been doing this competitively for really 5 years now. So it's pretty easy from that, but they've been helpful. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And communication is key, in letting them know why I'm doing it and what's going on. And my friends from high school and things like that, at this point, used to be a little bit harder to kind of let them know what's going on. But at this point, they understand, and they've just been supportive. But it definitely takes some talking. Yeah, definitely have a strong support group. It helps. Myself, 5-10 years from now, hopefully get married here in a few years and have some kids. And I don't know, that's kind of where I want to be as far as work goes. I love my job. I do enjoy working here. We have lots of good therapists, and just easy camaraderie, which makes it really nice. Someday, maybe when I have, hopefully have kids, maybe go to more of a, a part-time kind of role. And I might, work out of a CrossFit gym then, or something like that then, and just kind of do things on the side where I wanted to, but, not have as strict of a schedule as I do now as far as work goes. People at first, when we started all this virtual therapy, a lot of people were like, this is what's going to be the next greatest thing. And I think pretty quickly people realized how hard it was to do that. And it really works for some people, and some people are very self-motivated. But for a lot of people, I think coming into the clinic and things like that are way more beneficial. So I think from that standpoint, therapy will continue to be an in-person thing for the most part. And there definitely will be some switch, though, to the virtual stuff. But like I said, you kind of have to have a pretty motivated individual to be able to do that. and honestly, most of the population is not as motivated as they'd like to think they are, which is fine. But it's just easier to have someone telling you what to do rather than you telling yourself what to do.
Sure.
But unfortunately though, and this is actually something, so right now they're trying to make major cuts in Medicare, which is not good for our profession, because right now that's it's one that's already not reimbursed super heavily. And so I think that's if those cuts continue to be made, there will be some drastic changes in what is available to people of the older population, which is unfortunate. But I'm hoping that I know there's a lot of people on the PT side that are trying to, stand up for us. So I'm hoping that continues to be a thing, because it's that Medicare situation is not great right now. So
right. Any other questions at all for Taylor? Anybody?
All right.
If not,
what does working out full time look like? So a lot of those people will, they get probably 8 to 10 hours, probably 10 to 12 hours sleep every night. It's quite impressive. But they go to the gym probably from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and they're not working out the full time, but they're doing different sessions and taking breaks and, eating lunch, but they're at the gym for a while. And most of those people are sponsored. And so they have people that will, if you get, just for an example, first to the CrossFIT Games, will give you $50,000 if you wear our clothing or things like that. So that's how they make their money. Honestly, you can make in the CrossFit world, you can make pretty decent money. Like for the CrossFit Games, if you win, it's $300,000. But I went to a competition in Australia and we won $5,000 for that. So, you can make some pretty decent money competing and things like that, but definitely nice to have those sponsors and things like that help you out. Online therapy for patients that don't need manual therapy. I mean, yeah, basically, but we had someone that had a frozen shoulder, which just means, your motion starts to freeze up. You can't get above your head and things like that. And really about, 2 visits in, I was like, I hate to tell you this, but I'm like, you have to come in because we're just not going to get the benefits you need without stretching. So you can do it. But again, some people have to be super motivated to do that on their own and stretch and kind of push to the point of pain. So yeah, I guess we probably had more success with the people that were basically almost done with therapy, and we were just kind of like giving them home exercise program and things like that we had with virtual therapy.
Sure. Anybody else?
Yeah, sorry about the audio, guys, but I'm glad that we were able to do this. It was fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Get back to work. All right. If everyone stays on, Taylor's going to hop off. See ya. All right. So if you're on, hey, thank you so much. So we're kind of looking at, every guest is a little different as far as how we set up. It's just in a COVID world. It's interesting, right? As far as, your professors are dealing with the same thing as far as how best to set up audio and video. Even if I practice that with a guest like Taylor, it's something still liable to happen like that. I think she was in her clinic and it just wasn't great reception with Wi-Fi. Anyway, that was good. Hopefully you got a little something out of that. Taylor is right down the street. So anytime you want to email her, you want to talk to her, shoot her an email. Right now you can't get observation hours. Shadowing hours is tough. So she says, she said 30 hours. I really think more than that. Your internship will get you 120 hours. In a clinic, but it's not always with a physical therapist, but the more the better, and different settings as well. So you can go to Athletico and do some orthopedic outpatient physical therapy, but also keep in mind that you can go to a hospital. You can observe an occupational therapist if you're thinking about that as well. And then you could also call ahead and arrange what types of patients will be coming in, right? If you're to come and observe me working with a client, there's a big difference between my Monday morning and my Thursday morning as far as goals go, ages, demographics, things like that. But right now, it's just tough to get some of those observation hours in person, but I will continue to follow up with people like Taylor and see what is available. My wife's name is Tara, so that keeps coming out of my mouth. Anyway. All right. So next week we're going to meet in person. So I'll shoot out a message about that. I'll see you in the studio in person, and we'll recap this talk, last week's talk with Alex, and go from there. All right. Otherwise, have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful week, and shoot me an email with any other questions or follow up about that. And I'll see you next week. See you.